A single pound of wild leeks sells for $20 in Manhattan restaurants, yet harvesting them in most public lands will earn you a citation and a fine. We criminalized foraging while monetizing flavor. For thousands of years, the Allium tricoccum emerged from frozen Appalachian soil every March, its broad green leaves signaling the end of winter scarcity. Indigenous communities celebrated its arrival with festivals, knowing its pungent bulbs and tender greens would restore vitality after months of preserved food. Early settlers called them ramps and harvested them by the basketful, recognizing their power to cleanse blood weakened by winter's monotony. Then the luxury food market discovered what the forest people always knew. Chefs began featuring ramps on menus as seasonal delicacies, creating demand that outpaced the plant's slow reproductive cycle. Suddenly, a food that grew freely for millennia became contraband in the very forests where it evolved. The distinction between sustainable harvest and commercial poaching blurred. Park services responded with blanket bans, criminalizing the act of gathering food that once sustained entire communities. Now we walk past wild abundance, legally prohibited from touching it, while restaurants charge premium prices for the same leaves harvested from private land. The revolution begins when we understand why they made our food illegal. The ramp refuses to cooperate with modern agriculture's timeline. From seed to harvestable bulb requires 7 full years. Compare this to domesticated onions, which mature in 4 months, and the industry's hatred becomes obvious. Ramps reproduce primarily through seeds, not bulb division, making mass propagation impossibly slow. Each plant produces a single flower stalk in late spring, yielding perhaps 20 seeds if conditions align perfectly. Those seeds require 2 full winters of freezing temperatures before germination occurs. The seedling emerges as a single thread-like leaf, barely visible among forest debris. For 6 years, it builds energy underground, expanding its bulb while producing progressively larger leaves. Only in year 7 does it achieve the size that foragers prize. This patience contradicts everything industrial agriculture demands. The system needs crops that yield within a single season, that tolerate mechanical harvesting, that ship without bruising. Ramps offer none of this efficiency. They grow wild in deciduous forests, requiring specific soil pH, partial shade, and undisturbed mycorrhizal networks. Attempting to farm them commercially means waiting 7 years for the first harvest. No industrial operation tolerates such timelines. Modern cultivated onions contain roughly 12% dry matter. Wild ramps measure between 22 and 28%. This difference represents more than water content. It represents concentrated vitamins, sulfur compounds, and minerals that forest soil delivers naturally. Ramps emerge when spring forests offer virtually no other green growth, making them historically crucial for preventing scurvy. Their vitamin C content reaches 40 milligrams per 100 grams, double that of standard onions. The sulfur compounds responsible for their pungent aroma also demonstrate antimicrobial properties that protected communities from spring bacterial surges. Indigenous peoples understood this medicine intuitively, incorporating ramps into post-winter cleansing rituals. The broad leaves accumulate more chlorophyll than cultivated alliums, delivering higher mineral density. Calcium, iron, and selenium concentrations exceed those found in greenhouse-grown alternatives. But lab results cannot capture the flavor complexity. Ramps taste simultaneously like garlic, onion, and something entirely wild, a pungency that cooked greens cannot replicate. Restaurants charge premium prices precisely because this flavor profile cannot be manufactured. The forest creates what the factory cannot copy. Before the bans, entire Appalachian towns hosted annual ramp festivals, celebrating the plant's return with community feasts. These festivals represented more than cuisine. They embodied food sovereignty, the radical concept that communities should access their local wild foods without government permission. Then commercial harvesters arrived with trucks, stripping entire hillsides to supply urban markets. Photographs from the early 2000s show garbage bags stuffed with ramps, bulbs and all, destined for high-end restaurants. This extraction harvesting destroyed future populations. Pulling the bulb kills the plant entirely, unlike leaf-only harvesting, which allows regrowth. Within a decade, once abundant ramp patches vanished from accessible forests. Park Services responded with total harvest prohibitions, effectively banning cultural practices that had sustained populations for millennia. The solution punished traditional users while failing to address commercial poaching. Now, elderly Appalachians risk citations for gathering food their grandparents harvested freely. The criminalization of foraging serves as another chapter in the systematic erasure of self-sufficient food cultures. Growing ramps in home gardens represents the only legal path forward, yet few gardeners attempt it. The 7-year wait discourages those accustomed to annual vegetables. But perennial thinking transforms this patience into permanent yield. Plant ramps once, and they produce for generations. Unlike annual crops requiring yearly soil disturbance, seed purchases, and fertilizer inputs, established ramp colonies expand naturally. The initial investment involves purchasing seeds or small bulbs from ethical suppliers who cultivate rather than wild harvest. Prepare a shaded bed beneath deciduous trees, ideally with rich, slightly acidic soil. Sow seeds in autumn, allowing winter's freeze-thaw cycles to break dormancy. For 3 years, nothing impressive occurs above ground. Resist the urge to disturb the soil or supplement with fertilizer. Ramps evolved in nutrient-rich forest duff, requiring only leaf mulch and patience. By year 4, recognizable leaves emerge. By year 7, the patch begins yielding harvestable leaves without compromising the bulbs. Sustainable harvest means taking only 1 leaf per plant, leaving the bulb and remaining foliage intact. This method allows annual harvests without destroying the colony. Chefs obsess over ramps because their flavor occupies territory that domesticated alliums cannot reach. The leaves provide garlicky intensity that wilts into buttery richness. The bulbs deliver sharp, clean bite that mellows into caramelized sweetness when roasted. This duality makes them irreplaceable in seasonal cuisine. Pesto made from ramp leaves carries complexity that basil alone cannot achieve. Compound butter infused with minced ramps transforms simple bread into something worth remembering. Pickling the bulbs preserves their bite through winter, offering pungent contrast to heavy stews. But the real magic occurs when treating them simply. Grilled whole, the leaves char while the bulbs steam internally, creating textures and flavors that justify the $20 price tag. This is not pretentious gastronomy. This is the taste of forests in spring, a flavor that industrial agriculture eliminated when it prioritized storage over satisfaction. The irony remains inescapable. We outlawed the food precisely when its value became undeniable. Park regulations claim harvest bans protect endangered populations, yet ramps face no federal threat listing. The actual endangerment stems from commercial overharvesting, not traditional foraging practices. Indigenous and Appalachian communities harvested ramps sustainably for millennia without depleting populations. The decline began only when market forces commodified wild food. Blanket bans punish subsistence foragers while failing to address the root economic pressure. Meanwhile, habitat destruction through logging and development eliminates ramp populations far more effectively than any harvest practice. True conservation would involve prosecuting commercial poachers while permitting traditional sustainable harvest. Instead, policy criminalizes cultural food practices while ignoring industrial habitat destruction. The message becomes clear: you cannot feed yourself from public lands, but corporations can extract timber from those same forests. This represents food sovereignty's systematic dismantling. When gathering wild food becomes illegal, communities lose not just nutrition, but the knowledge systems that sustain them. Each generation grows more dependent on industrial supply chains, more vulnerable to disruption, more disconnected from the land. Cultivating ramps in private gardens bypasses legal restrictions entirely. No permit required, no citations issued, no park rangers monitoring your forest edge. The act becomes quiet rebellion, reclaiming food autonomy one perennial patch at a time. Start with 50 seeds or 20 small bulbs. In 7 years, that initial planting yields hundreds of harvestable plants. In 15 years, thousands. The patience required filters out those seeking quick returns, leaving only those committed to generational thinking. This timeline aligns perfectly with perennial food forest philosophy. Invest once, harvest forever. Pair ramps with other slow-growing natives like golden seal, ginseng, or black cohosh to create layered forest understories. These plants evolve together, supporting each other through shared mycorrhizal networks. Modern permaculture validates what indigenous peoples practiced instinctively. Diverse polycultures outperform monocrops in resilience, pest resistance, and nutritional density. Growing ramps becomes more than food production. It becomes participation in ecological healing, rebuilding the forest floor diversity that industrial forestry destroyed. $20 per pound seems expensive until calculating what industrial onions actually cost. Conventional onions retail for roughly $1 per pound, but this price excludes externalized costs. Industrial onion cultivation requires synthetic fertilizers derived from fossil fuels, pesticides that contaminate watersheds, and irrigation systems that deplete aquifers. Soil degradation from annual tillage adds hidden costs measured in lost fertility and increased erosion. Transportation from California or Washington to eastern markets burns fuel and generates emissions. Refrigerated storage extends availability, but demands constant energy input. When accounting for these environmental debts, that dollar per pound price represents subsidized destruction. Ramps require none of this infrastructure. They grow wild in existing forests, fertilize themselves through leaf mulch, resist pests through natural chemical defenses, and need zero irrigation. The $20 price reflects true cost, the value of food grown without extracting from future generations. Paying premium for ramps means investing in ecological methods rather than subsidizing industrial degradation. The distinction isn't botanical, it's economic philosophy. Planting ramps means investing in food security for people you will never meet. The patch you establish today feeds your grandchildren. This timeline offends modern sensibilities, trained to expect instant returns. But perennial thinking transcends quarterly profits and annual yields. Indigenous peoples planted nut trees knowing they would never taste the harvest, understanding that food security operates across generations. Ramps embody this same principle at smaller scale. Every wild edible cultivated in home landscapes represents one less commodity purchased from industrial supply chains. Multiply this across thousands of households and the impact compounds. When communities grow significant portions of their food perennially, they gain resilience against supply disruptions, price inflation, and corporate consolidation. This is not survivalist paranoia. This is practical preparation for inevitable instability. Ramps planted today become inheritance, living assets that require no maintenance once established. They emerge each spring regardless of economic conditions, offering guaranteed nutrition when industrial systems falter. The revolution grows slowly, 7 years at a time. Growing ramps will not overthrow industrial agriculture, but it reclaims one species from the extinction list of forgotten foods. Every perennial food patch erodes the system's control incrementally. Start with what grows naturally in your climate. For eastern forests, that includes ramps. The spring will return regardless. The question is whether you will harvest from your own land or pay premium prices for criminalized abundance.